While the widespread arrests of immigrants in the United States has been the focus of what is widely seen as the Trump administration's assault on democratic values, the federal government has also taken aim at others considered enemies, especially at universities. Turkish PhD student Rumeysa Turk at Tufts University near Boston was the first target whose case received widespread attention. On March 25th, she was on her way to have dinner with friends when she was arrested by masked and plainclothes agents. She had no idea who these people were or what was happening. Although she was in the U.S. on a legal student visa, she quickly disappeared into a Kafkaesque detention system, moved from Massachusetts to Vermont, and finally to a detention center in Louisiana. Her case came to the attention of the American Civil Liberties Union in Boston. Jesse Rossman was assigned to be her lawyer.
What's happening there is clearly unlawful and terrifying. Her family had no idea where she was. Her friends had no idea where she was. Even her counsel, for a period of 24 hours, no one was able to get in touch with Rumeysa to find out where she was.
It became clear that Turk was targeted because months earlier she had co-authored an article in the Tufts student newspaper calling on the university administration to recognize what is happening in Gaza as a genocide.
The free speech protections of the First Amendment protect citizens and non-citizens alike, and people shouldn't be abducted off of the streets and taken halfway across the country to be put behind bars because of speaking out.
There were demonstrations across the United States calling for Turk to be freed. After 45 days of incarceration, a federal judge determined that Turk's detention was illegal, and she was released from prison in Louisiana.
Thank you so much for all the support online.
I think across the country, and honestly even internationally, what we saw was an outcry that this is not the way the First Amendment is supposed to operate here in this country.
The Trump administration quickly moved on to Harvard University, where they demanded the name of every foreign student.
You're going to see some very radical people. They're taking people from areas of the world that are very radicalized, and we don't want them making trouble in our country.
Harvard was threatened with the withholding of billions of dollars of federal scientific research funds if they did not crack down on student demonstrations and remove other liberal race and gender policies. Harvard resisted, but Columbia University in New York City quickly surrendered to Trump's terms.
Columbia University sort of was a model of cowardice in their initial and later responses.
Senior Professor Jason Stanley gained fame at Yale University as an expert on fascism.
I think what you see in the United States now is a general chill in speech in universities. People don't even recognize that it's a chill. They think to themselves, oh, I don't want to draw attention to my university. I don't want to draw attention to my institution. This will pass. So they don't recognize that this is part of the slide into fascism.
You see what we're doing with the colleges, and they're all bending and saying, sir, thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Another Trump target was the University of California, Berkeley. In the 1960s and 70s, Berkeley became famous for student demonstrations and what was called the free speech movement. The demonstrations began in reaction to the anti-communist purges led by Senator Joseph McCarthy.
One communist on the faculty of one university is one communist too many.
Berkeley students protesting at San Francisco City Hall were arrested and thrown down the stairs by police in full view of cameras.
Before they're allowed to be free.
After that came the student demonstrations in favor of civil rights for black people, and then massive demonstrations in opposition to the Vietnam War. In recent years, student protests centered on the Black Lives Matter movement and the war in Gaza. The Trump administration demanded that Berkeley provided with the names of students who attended pro-Palestinian demonstrations. Robert Reich is a professor at Berkeley.
What did the University of California, Berkeley do when the administration asked for the names of demonstrators who were pro-Palestinian? The administration, instead of saying, no, we are protecting our freedom of speech, we don't want to intimidate our students or faculty. No, the administration turned around and gave 160 names to the administration. Some of those people are on visas. You don't, in my book, you don't try to appease dictators or tyrants. It's dangerous to do that because there is no end to the demands that a tyrant or a dictator will make. And that's unfortunately what some universities are doing now.
All autocrats attack universities. Students protest. That's what students do. Look at what happened in Bangladesh when the students overthrew the autocratic government. So students protest. Students protested the Vietnam War. Students protested apartheid in South Africa. The indisputable fact that autocrats regard universities as central democratic institutions that they must attack if they are going to destroy democracy.
So is there a climate of fear in universities across the country, do you think?
There is definitely a climate of fear among students across universities, particularly among students who are from other nations, among faculty, particularly faculty from other countries. People are worried about their jobs. They're worried about their kind of academic integrity and freedom of speech.
The whip hand Trump has over universities is the threat to withhold billions of dollars in scientific research funding.
Billions of dollars has been paid to Harvard. How ridiculous is that? Billions. And they have $52 billion as an endowment.
The Trump administration made the same threats to universities across the country, like the University of California, Los Angeles, where Jonathan Sasloff teaches law.
The war against universities, again, it's the attack on knowledge workers. He's claiming it has something to do with anti-Semitism, which is garbage. They hire more anti-Semites than crack down on it. Universities are, in many ways, quite susceptible to this because they depend so heavily on federal funding for a lot of scientific research. At my own university, the University of California, this is very, very serious. Lots and lots of people are going to have to be let go, and there is lots of very, very important research that cannot be done anymore.
The hope that what we could do is not only improve the quantity, but also the quality of their lives.
John Quackenbush is a world-renowned genetic scientist at Harvard who for decades has trained leading researchers around the world, developing cutting-edge treatments for cancer and other diseases. The Trump administration abruptly cut off millions of dollars from his research grants.
There was clearly some kind of political motivation behind it. I had a grant that was terminated because we were looking at sex differences in disease, and it was funded through a program at the National Institutes of Health that mandated that scientists look at both sex and gender, things that were perceived to fall in the domain of diversity, equity, inclusion. So anything that sort of rang of that was terminated.
Quackenbush was conducting a critical study on how certain cancers advance at different rates in men and in women.
Does it seem to you that the Trump administration is kind of at war with science?
Being on the receiving end of a lot of what happens, it does feel like a war on science and a war on expertise.
That's sort of the standard theory of fascism that...
Jason Stanley has now left his tenured position at Yale University and moved with his family to the University of Toronto.
When Columbia capitulated is when I decided to move to Toronto. First of all, it's not just, the risk the United States falls of falling into fascism, which is, maybe a risk that is now, it's well on its way to being actualized. But it's also that Canada is the world's foremost multiracial democracy. So I have hopes that Canada can be kind of a bulwark for the world against this global fascist threat.
Stanley says he is following in the footsteps of his Jewish grandparents who fled Hitler's Germany on the eve of the Second World War. Many U.S. academics say they are considering a similar path to escape the Trump war on universities.